I had no niche. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew the clients I really didn't like to work with, but they were also talking about, you got to find your niche. You got to find your niche. And I'm like, how do you find a niche?
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and today's show is going to be a fantastic one. Our guest is a bookkeeper from British Columbia, Canada, and she's also a Pure Bookkeeping licensee, as well as so much more that we're going to learn about today. Leslee Hickerson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Welcome.
It's great to have you. Yeah, it's great to have you. You know, let's maybe start off with just a little bit of a background on yourself. You know, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
I grew up in a very small town in northwestern Ontario, like a tiny little town in northwestern Ontario in the sticks. In high school, I realized that, this is going to date me, that computers were the future. So I went into computer programming. My goal was to become a programmer. However, cockiness only goes so far, and then fear kicks in, and I switched majors. Actually, the prof came to find me, wondering where I went, but I just chickened out and went into business. It's funny because accounting always made sense, but I didn't rub well with the accounting prof. So I just went into general business. And then later, when I moved west and my kids were in school, I started taking courses again. And I kept taking accounting courses because they just made sense. Through the accounting courses, actually, one of my profs took me to a CPA-BC course, a recruiting session, because he wanted me to become a certified professional accountant, a CPA course, which I pursued until I scared myself and life got in the way and I dropped out. During that, though, my kids got into sport. And as we know, we become the experts in whatever sport our children joined. So I became a swim, stroke and turn judge and all these other things. But during that, they needed somebody to do the books. They knew I was taking accounting courses. And one of the board members was a business owner, and she mentored me on how to do the bookkeeping. So that was really how I got into bookkeeping in the first place, was because of those darn kids. And I learned simply accounting and did that for until my kids grew out of swimming, essentially. And I handed it off.
Wow. Amazing. And so you did that for a while, and then how did it
11
become a
years.
business?
It's funny because I've worked for people, and I always find that I end up starting a side hustle. I work in a business, I worked in a dentist office, I worked in a chiropractor office, but I always have a side hustle going because I just would always end up doing that. And gradually, actually, it was a couple of years I worked for a CPA in town. And then at the end of the tax season, it kind of dries up. And I went out on my own. It's like, okay, I don't really enjoy working for people. Maybe I should work for me. And the side hustle just kind of grew, and a client came to me. It was actually condos. They were looking for somebody, and sure, I could do it. Didn't seem that hard. And a friend of mine helped me, mentored me. She introduced me to IPBC and taught me how to set things up and how to build a file and how to have an engagement letter. I didn't even know what that was. And I took on their books, and boy, did I learn how to do it and how to be organized. And there's actually, now that I look back in hindsight, I did that for 13 years. I had value pricing in place. I had workflows in place before I knew what any of these things were. I just developed all those things. And I was doing forecasting. I was doing presentations at board meetings. I was kind of, everything, but I wasn't a property manager. We had one of those, but I was doing the whole thing without having a clue going into it, what I was getting into. And I do better if I haven't got a clue what I'm into. I just learn it because nobody told me I couldn't do it all. And I just did until COVID. COVID changed everything. The board kind of went away. They wanted a different setup and they just didn't need my services anymore. So that kind of left me high and dry for a bit because that was my bread and butter, really. I lost a big contract with that. That was the bulk of my income was that one client. Darn COVID and travel agents and restaurants.
Right.
So I was done.
Yeah.
I was done.
That's a big part of the business in a small town where you live.
Everything. You're a generalist.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a
So then what
generalist.
did it look like after that? So COVID hit. You went through a downturn.
COVID hit, the downturn. But I had joined Mark Wickerson's program the year prior because I'd always take his seminars, kick the tires at it, and not join. And something finally went, hit the button and go. So during that, Teresa Slack was doing a lot of training, and she would tease us, not tease necessarily, but she would introduce snippets from Pure. And it was like, I need to learn this. This sounds like what I've always done. When I worked for the accountant that year, I actually developed my own handbook for every client that I had. So I had a workflow in pencil of everything I did. When I did the swim club, I did that. I had my own workbook of all this stuff. So when I heard about Pure and I read eMyth, it was like, oh, my people, this is me. That inspired me to join Pure because I thought, okay, someone else thinks the way my brain does. I'm not an island. There might be more of us out there. So,
That's right.
Yeah.
Wow. So you joined Pure, and that would have been, what was
2020.
that? 2020. So like kind of like just kind of as COVID is eating away at all of these clients and businesses, you joined Pure. Yeah.
Well, I had a major shoulder surgery, so I was off work for quite a while. And you can only watch TV for so long, and then you start. I'm not a good sit-stiller person, so I have to learn. I have to always be learning. And I joined it, and it was interesting. It opened up that I always felt like I was on my own, and suddenly I had this community, this amazing community. And where could it go, right? So the learning began. I wasn't too worried about the income. I had, my spouse was still working. So I was definitely not the main breadwinner in the house. So I could coast for a little bit, but I'm not a sit still kind of person. And I just needed to find something to do. Diving into that helped. So,
nice.
Yeah.
And so you joined Pure, you're going heavy duty into Mark Wickerson's program. What started to gel? What happened? What did that start to look like?
It gave me systems. Like I'd always had systems, but being a generalist, I had systems for every client that I worked with, and they didn't really flow across. Before COVID, though, in 2014, I'd actually gone to the IPBC conference in Kelowna. My mentor friend took me there, and I saw Ron Baker with his black swans. And I was all into that because I was already doing that to an extent with the condos that I worked with. but I'm like, oh, this is gold. How are they doing this? How can I learn this? So again, I was always trying to find it. Internet wasn't quite as flush with data as it is now. So you hunt and peck and you find, and I think that's why I joined Mark Wickersham, and then it found Pure, and these all kind of started to coalesce where I could work with them all. I could take all my learning from before and start focusing. I had no niche. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew the clients I really didn't like to work with, but they were also talking about, you got to find your niche. You got to find your niche. And I'm like, how do you find a niche? How do you find a niche? What does that even mean? So I I didn't mind working with condos because I was good at it. But during COVID, you have to be a property manager. And in a small town, it's a small field. It's not like I'm in a city where I can actually go to the chamber and pick up clients like that. It's too small here. It's a different world. Online was still new, really, in 2020. Now it's not. Now we live online and we don't even bother going to workspaces anymore. I don't go to any clients. I don't know many bookkeepers that do. But that was new. That was new from COVID times.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
COVID, there's pros and cons to everything in life. And one of those would be that the world embraced the online. Because even if you were, some people might say, oh, online, I've been doing online since 89. The rest of the world was not. Business owners were not. They were expecting, and many of them were expecting people to be in the office, to see your face, to see how things are going. And then that COVID really got everybody. It's like, oh, this all works fine online. And both parties, clients and as well technicians or bookkeepers, any industry really, it was like, let's meet online. I mean,
Yes.
and that's where, like, if you think of the telephone, if only one person had one, it wouldn't be very useful. Now
So
everyone's
true.
got Zoom and they've learned how to use it and they feel somewhat comfortable. Now the telephone works and we can do this a lot better. So that was
It's
interesting
true.
that you really noticed that. And being in a small town, that opened up the world to you. And
Yeah.
so where did the rebuilding begin? You lost a bunch of clients during COVID. You came back, you're bringing your, cohesive end-to-end system, if you will, with Pure. Um, what did it start to look like? What did you do to get reestablished?
I still relied on word of mouth. I still rely, and again, in a small town, you rely on referrals from within. I didn't really know how to advertise out there. But in 2012, actually, I was asked again through a friend to help out. Would I help out in their law firm? Their bookkeeper was going to be off for surgery and out of the office for a couple months. And I was like, I have no idea what you guys do. I've never touched this. I don't even know what language you people speak. But I went in and I did meet with the lawyer and I asked him what he paid his bookkeeper. And I said, oh, I can't work for that. And I told him what I needed and he agreed. Oh, no, I'm not that cheap. But he agreed to it. And because I knew what I was charging out as a home person and I needed to cover my own CPP and tax, right? And it's like, well, I can work for this. And he agreed. So I started, that was my introduction to law. That was my first time in a legal office, learning a whole new field. And again, ignorance is bliss. I had no idea what I was stepping into. Nobody told me I couldn't do it or I couldn't succeed. So I just learned it. I had 1 day's training. It was supposed to be a few days, and her surgery date changed. So I had 1 whole day's training to learn software, language, flow, and it was sink or swim, and lots of help in there. But boy, did I learn that field quickly. And I developed a binder of how to's. Everything I had, my workflows developed so that if I ever got called back in, I had a binder of how to do every single task.
Wow.
So, yeah, scary stuff.
Wow. And so that was back in 2012. So that was, you had some experience with with lawyers, and is that where you started to go with your business after 2020?
Yeah. So then I decided, I didn't really decide. Again, life just kind of hands you your choices sometimes, and you don't even realize it. My first day on my own was the last day for the articling student before she went on her own. And she just leaned over and she goes, "Do you have a business card?" And I said, "No." But we connected. And then when I finished my 2-month gig, I connected with her and started doing her uh, compliance work. And that's where I really started to learn more about the requirements, the needs, and develop that niche. And she and I worked together, and she is still my best client, my favorite client. I've been doing her stuff now coming on 13 years.
Wow.
But what it really did is, this is kind of again, life just changes, things change. The main software that law firms use was desktop. And it was dated, and then it sold offshore. The support started to get worse, and we started seeking a cloud version. So I tested a whole bunch of cloud versions, knowing I can use any software out there. But will the lawyer use it? Will she like it? And we landed on this one software. And it's like, yeah, I think this one will work. You'll like it, Caesar. They had a consultant training program. So I took the 4-day one-on-one phone calls and learned the software quickly. Through that, my skills went up, the language went up. And that's where the niche started to develop. I was still guilty as charged of taking anybody with a bank account. I don't know if that ever completely goes away, where you panic because of COVID and it's like, they have a bank account. I need a client. It's like, no, you don't. So because I became this consultant and they send over clients, again, my very first one was a massive firm, didn't have a clue what I was doing, but boy, did I learn quickly. And that's where the niche came in. Through that, I learned that not only did I find my niche, but I needed to niche in my niche. I had to take that niche, and I call it ultra niche, which seems a bit scary because if I become so good at just one thing, what if the world falls apart again and I lose it? But my niche won't. There's always going to be a need for law firms and lawyers. And I think that goes to many firms. Find your niche and then niche again. I actually got that from a friend in Pure, and she's the one, we might know Bev, in Vancouver, and she's the one who told me, fine tune it even more, become even more niched within, become an expert in your niche. You can be a generalist all the time, and you can even be a generalist in a niche, but if you become so good at one section of that niche, it's gold. And your confidence goes up.
And so having niched and really laying into it and ultra niching, what do you notice now about the work that you do and how you get business and how you do the work? Have things changed or?
Definitely things have changed. Confidence, as I said, grows because I've niched into this field. I have a cousin that's a lawyer. He's a contract lawyer and he's a KC, and he said, you cannot be a sole op anymore. You are working with law firms. You have to incorporate. And I'm like, all right. So I did that, not knowing what I was doing. And that's where this became the thing. So my business name is Magua Consulting. I am Indigenous. I am Métis. And Magua is the Cree word for loon. So it just seemed to be what resonated with me. And that's what I am. So I'm an Indigenous corporation, niching in law. And by doing that and by incorporating and because I'm now ultra niched, I find that if I get a prospect call, I can answer their questions before they've even thought of them. You learn their pain points. yes, every type of law is different, but they have the same pain points in general. Lawyers want to make money. They cannot be bothered with how the office is running in general. They want to do their thing, and they want to know the back office is working. And what are the issues? And that is with every niche. You have to know the pain points of what they do, what are the strengths of the people in that field, and what are their common weaknesses. They're not all the same, but they all will have common weakness, whether it's law, construction, whatever. You're going to find you need to learn your niche, and you really need to learn your niche if you're going to ultra niche, for sure.
And what would you call your ultra niche? Is it because there's lawyers, and then was it contract lawyers?
No, so my niche actually is converting them. I take them from their software, their legacy software, or whatever software they're in, and I bring them into this software that I like. There's another one. I'm not employed. I'm an independent consultant, but
Gotcha.
I really like this software because it's got a heavy accounting background, heavily strong in accounting. I don't know front office. There's other consultants that are better at, when I say front office, HR, workflow, coordinating documents, all that stuff is considered front office. Back office is the accounting side of it.
Gotcha.
And because I've been doing this for a little while, I can take all that accounting knowledge, and when I'm converting their data, and now that I know the law stuff and the rules and the regulations, help them stay compliant during the conversion, and then teach them how to use the software. So very little compliance work, more converting from, into, and then on their way.
Got it.
So it's a one and done model.
Got it. So you're doing that, and where do they end up going for the compliance work? Do you don't take that work on and you pass that off?
The bigger firms have their own. I
Okay.
have found that in the larger firms, they're going to have an accounting department. They're going to have all that. The solo ops, the solo lawyers want to be able to stay solo. Sometimes they need me. I train them so they don't. They can really do it. This software is so good, and a lot of them are, where they can do their own thing. They don't need to hire until they want to hire. They're on their own for a reason. They've worked for the big firms, they've seen the politic of it, and they want to be alone. If they need somebody and they need me to come in and quarterly just do GST or whatever, it's easy for me to hop in and do that. But I must say that even in my niche, in the last couple of years, I've been doing back to back to back conversions, and I've ultra niched another layer. I'm not enjoying doing the big ones. They're very lucrative. Every time I speak to fellow consultants, I get a pay raise because I ask what they charge, and I'm like, I just got a raise. This was great. But I enjoy the smaller ones more. The big ones, you've got a lot of personalities. You have a lot of personalities to play with, and they take longer, where the small ones I can do the conversion, get them on their way, and move on in 6 weeks. Big ones, you're looking at a couple months. And there's a lot more management of shall we say, drama. And I think those in accounting, we're not fans of drama. That's why we hide in our little offices away from people. But yeah, so that's just come to me in the last probably 4 months, where I'm not going to take on any more big ones. Yeah, there's way more money, but there's a lot
Less
more
egos.
people too. Yeah. So
Very cool. So now you also took on the Accelerate to Advisor program as well.
yes, I have.
Tell us a little bit about that. How that came to be. I mean, there's a master class that runs 3 times a year, which is free. Many people will take that, every single time, all through the year. It's very popular. And then there is the mastermind program where you're working with Lisa personally and her team. You belong to that program. I'd love to hear your journey into that. Where did you find it? How did it go? And how did you end up getting involved?
That's funny because I think I probably attended 7 or 8 times without actually hitting send. Um, and then I spoke to Lisa this last summer, and again, I think that was the third one I'd done in a year, where I took notes thinking I could just do it. And this time she offered a 15-minute talk to me before you join. And I talked to her and I talked about what I was doing. And I said, should I? And she said, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. I don't know why, but it just made sense this time.
Mm-hmm.
So interestingly, I've had some health stuff in the last 2 years. So now I'm actually looking at transitioning my business again. So the timing is rather incredible. I've got an employee. I'm getting rid of all my compliance work probably by June. The advisory is what I do in consulting. So when I do my consulting and I do the conversions, that's advisory. That's my opportunity to take my skills and train. I'm having a lot of fun in there. I love having the small cohorts. The accountability is incredible. It's funny because you meet people in there and it's like I just sync with some people so quickly.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, these are my people. I found my people, but these are my people.
The people within the people.
The people within the people. And even though I've had some health stuff and I'm going to be transitioning yet again in the business, but I think why stay still? That's no fun. A2I is giving me those tools. I already had some of them. Like I've already got the value pricing stuff down. Within my niche, speaking to other consultants, I'm figuring out my pricing based on them. We don't compete on price. We all try to stay at the same rate. So they're not price shopping us. They're
Mm-hmm.
shopping the consultant by the skill set, not the price point. So that's interesting. It's like the cohort then, again, it's different and we can share. We had one meeting where one of the consultants or one of the cohorts and another cohort was working with a law firm and something came up and I just had red flags going off, like bells dinging, like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And she listened to me and I was so excited for her because it's like, trust me, this is a bad move. I've got years in this field. Don't do it. And if somebody else saw something that I was stepping into without realizing I was about to step on a rattlesnake, I hope they would point that out to me. It's an exciting journey. I've learned a lot in it already. Again, the imposter syndrome is being challenged. It's there, and some of it is coming up again. But the
Mm.
small group shakes that out of you. The two, Janet and Jennifer, are just amazing. The open office calls with Lisa, she takes no prisoners. So
She'll take on your imposter syndrome for sure.
absolutely, and that's
Yeah.
what we need. We know
Yeah.
it here, but we need the push.
That's for sure. Literally last night, my wife was speaking to, and I was eavesdropping, kind of. She was on speakerphone, talking to my niece, who is first year commerce, and she's looking for an internship. Very bright girl, but she's identified, and she's only what are they, 17 or something when they start school. First year is 17 or 18. And she's like, yeah, I have imposter syndrome. She's very clear at 18 that she has imposter syndrome. And her question is, how do I get over imposter syndrome? And the interesting thing is, it's like, it's always going, it's like having your arms. You've got your arms. Well, you've got your imposter syndrome. It's not like you get rid of your human condition. You just learn how to challenge it and get around it, go through it, go under it. And when you figure that out, then there's a new one down the road, likely, that you have to figure out. It's so interesting. And the quote that I gave her was, and I've said it on the podcast a number of times, it comes up so often because it's just like our arms, right? Our hands, our
Yes.
feet, eyes, all of it. It's there always, which is we overestimate the capabilities of others, and we underestimate the capabilities of ourselves.
Oh, I
And
love that.
yeah, it's a beautiful. And she said the same thing. She had never heard it before. I
Yes.
live with it, and I keep it. It's always on the back of my mind, that particular quote. And the only way is to identify what it is you want to do and do it. Is to act, is to acknowledge the fear and act. And she said, well, how do I become more courageous? And Debbie Roberts always, whenever somebody says, how do I become more courageous or confident?
Confident.
It's how do I become more confident? That's what was her question. And I always think of Debbie Roberts, who says the way to become more confident is to be courageous, take action, learn. You're good at it,
So
you're
true.
not good at it, you figure it out, you do it okay, and then you get better at it. And all of a sudden, the next thing you know is you have some confidence. You spoke about that confidence in
Absolutely.
your ultra niche, is that in the beginning, you're not confident because you've never done it before.
Yeah.
Why would you be confident in something that you haven't done? So it's good. It's a good one to be thinking about, and it's very relevant to our listener always.
Absolutely.
Which is, and I'm not going to say that it's just the bookkeeping audience that has this
Absolutely.
human condition. It's all humans, and varying degrees. Some people figure it out early in life, or it's not strong in them, and then others it's very strong.
I like to say, be willing to learn, and especially from your mistakes. I will make mistakes. I actually tell them out at the get-go. I will make mistakes, but I never make the same one twice. Learn from them. The fear of mistakes holds us back. I'm a recovering perfectionist, I say.
That's right.
Because it's that what will they think? And we'd be surprised how little they think of us if we knew how much.
That's right.
But yeah, it's I love that example because it's just there, and it rears its head every time you do something you think isn't quite
That's right.
whatever. And it's, do you get through it or do you let it cripple you? And as I said in our chat before, I like mountain biking. That is risky. That is dangerous. The first time I did it, I wanted to return my bike the next day because I couldn't believe what I did. But I like to push myself into stuff that I can't do. I like to push myself. I like to take risk. I've had some good accidents. Doesn't stop me. It just teaches me. Risk isn't easy. It's scary as heck, but you get through it. If you're not going to take risk, you may as well just bubble wrap yourself and sit on the sofa. That's not me. I have to keep trying and I have to keep going. As I said, with my changing of my business, I'm going to be focusing more time in my Indigenous community after I scale back a little bit, taking my skills, my talents, my experience, and giving back to my community and others. I've always believed in giving back to community, so that's the starting out in your kid's sport, right? You give.
That's right. Wonderful.
Clients, actually, my first mentor said, for God's sake, don't advertise. The clients will find you. Like,
That's
excuse
wonderful.
me? Excuse me?
So true.
If you're good, they'll find you. And it's like, well, I'm on LinkedIn. I find out where my clients hang out. Lawyers are on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. If they were on TikTok, I'd learn TikTok. They are on LinkedIn. That's where my presence is. But that's where my client base is. So that's where I have my profile. That's my who.
Wonderful.
That's part of learning your niche. Where
It
are
certainly
your
gets
ideal
easier,
clients?
doesn't it? Yeah, when you know who you're looking for and who you like to work with, it makes it so much easier to go and find them.
And if you don't have to do 20 years of figuring out who you don't like, good for you.
That's right. Yes, that's right. So many learnings for throughout a career. That's for sure.
Yeah. And other
Well,
thing I would say is if you're in Canada, join CPB Canada. Get yourself certified. You're going to meet a network of people in there. Your confidence is going to grow because they teach you the basics. If after that you want to join Pure, good on you. But as a very base thing in Canada, become certified. Get the knowledge so that we're all dealing with the base level. I've seen so many people who take one course, they think they're a bookkeeper, and um, how can they succeed well, right? How can
yeah,
they do it without enough knowledge?
that's a
Um,
risky. That's risky, and the damage it
that's
can
a risk
do.
I don't
Yeah,
take. Yeah,
for sure.
get your certification.
That's reckless to do that, and businesses are really important entities, and the finances of it are, is the lifeblood of it. So a mistake there can have catastrophic effect on many people and livelihoods and
Absolutely.
stuff like
And
that.
the
So
online world makes
yeah,
them believe that's all they need is one
that's
course, right? So,
that's right. The complexity of business today is so grand that it needs experience, knowledge, core fundamentals, and mentorship. Otherwise,
so true.
mistakes get made, and it's a huge liability to many. And so that's great. The CPB
Yeah,
is wonderful organization. I know there's pathways there to get people to where they need to be and educated to the level they
absolutely.
need to be educated at. Yeah, and it's
Hmm.
good for everyone, right? All the industry needs it, and and there's no shortage in terms of the need for great
No.
bookkeepers. And so that's the big opportunity. And so love the organization, and I love that you've been on the podcast. We've known each other for a
Oh, thank you
while, and
so much. Yes.
it's been great to have you. And I love catching up and hearing those backstories. One of my favorite is just to hear where people been, where are they going,
Hmm.
what are the bumps and bruises along the way. And so this has
So
been
true.
really great, Leslie. I appreciate you being on the
Oh, thank you
podcast.
so much.
The pleasure is all ours. And with that, we wrap another episode of the Successful Bookkeeper podcast. To learn more about today's wonderful guest and to get access to all sorts of free, valuable business building resources, you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Until next time, goodbye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.